presented by Henry Ford Health System. I'm your host, Tori Petry. We have so much for you coming in the pregame show today, including a live look into those warm-ups down in Atlanta, which we will take you to in just a few when the players hit the field. For now, I want to bring in my co-host, Anthony Bellino, down at the Henry Ford Health System update desk. Anthony, we are excited to be talking about this game between the Lions and the Falcons. Another chance for the team to stay on track after getting that win over the Jacksonville Jaguars last week.
Well, good morning to you, Tori, and good morning to all of our viewers out there. Yes, we are ready to go. Atlanta coming into today's game at 1-5, so a very good opportunity for this Detroit Lions team to string a couple of wins together. You look back to the week that was in Jacksonville. I think that overall, when you looked at how the Lions offense and defensive units both played throughout the course of that game, a near perfect game on both sides of the football. Very impressed with the way that DeAndre Swift ran the ball, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing if that's a trend that's going to continue. Will Adrian Peterson get a bulk of the carries for this Lions offense? And then Matthew Stafford, will we continue to see him pushing the ball down the field to obviously the big play guy in Kenny Golladay? So very excited. A lot of storylines here. Defensively, however, very, very dangerous Atlanta team. Do not let the 1-5 record fool you. They've made some changes within their organization. They have two of the top wide receivers on the perimeter in Calvin Ridley and, of course, Julio Jones. Matty Ice behind the center. This is a dangerous Falcons team that's defense has kind of been very, very young, has let them down a little bit throughout the season. So it's a 1-5, but still remain concerned. It's professional football out here. They're all good.
Listen, Anthony, I got to give you some credit because last week with our fantasy picks, you said that was the game that DeAndre Swift was going to go off, and sure enough, he did.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that credit. I am not going to be able, unlike the Lions this week, I will not be able to string 2 weeks together. Our fantasy picks, I kind of, I try to just find people that are a little bit under the radar. I struck gold with DeAndre Swift. I might have talked to him the day before. I said, hey, just have a big game for me because I got a lot riding in the pregame show on you. But outside of that, I don't know if I can repeat 2 weeks in a row.
Listen, I respect it. We will get to our fantasy picks a little later in the show. But for now, let's take you down to Atlanta where the Lions headed off on the plane earlier this weekend. Here's a look at their departure from DTW, heading off on that Delta plane. Anthony, these guys have been looking sharp and bringing out some good outfits these last couple of weeks.
I'm telling you what, I don't know what runway these guys are dressing for, but I mean, whoever the stylist is for these guys or wherever their wardrobe is being shopped at, I would be more than happy to take. I'm a 44 long in the jacket, so if anybody wants to pass anything off to me, I'm here for you. But the guys looking sharp in one of those stretches throughout the season where trying to play back-to-back road games. And what does a road game really mean outside of the travel?
Look, the Chick-fil-A. Fueled up right. I like it.
I'm hungry just looking at it. But, what does a road game really mean outside of the travel because of the lack of fans, depending on, what state and what kind of regulations because of COVID-19. So outside of the actual, having to travel, a road game, does it really mean a whole lot to these guys, or is it just football and business as usual?
I like that fit from Chase Daniel. That was him in the blue here. Marvin Jones is always looking sharp when these guys head out on the road. You're exactly right. This road game is going to be important for this team. Just one more game on the road before they come back here to Ford Field for that game against the Colts. And this guy, Kenny Golladay, is going to be a big part of their game on the road this weekend. And man, he looks good heading out on that plane. I just love the velvet jackets, Anthony.
Yeah, like red velvet cake. I mean, my goodness, Kenny Golladay, don't hurt him right now. I mean, like I said, 44 long. I'll take the jacket when you're done. No, beggars can't be choosers. But no, team looks good. You look good. You play good. You play good. They pay good, or something like that. I think that's what Deion Sanders said.
Yeah, something like that. All right, Anthony, let's take it to the inactives for today, presented by Henry Ford Health System. First, we'll take a look at who's inactive for the Falcons. Defensive back Jalen Hawkins, Jordan Miller, DeAndre Sennett, and Quadre Allison, and then offensive tackle John Wetzel. That's who's inactive on the Falcons side of things. Now let's turn to who is inactive for the Detroit Lions. David Blau, we know last week he joined that active roster. He's the third quarterback on the roster. He's inactive today. Quintez Cephas, the rookie wide receiver, inactive again this week. Bo Scarborough, who rejoined the roster from IR this last week. That was a big step for him in his road to recovery from his injury. So good to see him back on the roster, but he will be inactive today. Rookie offensive lineman Logan Stenberg. And then Desmond Trufant, I am disappointed that we won't get to see him play against his former team today.
Yeah, I think the two names that really stick out to me, one you just mentioned, Desmond Trufant, is going to be vital to try to get him back on the field as quickly as possible. But, Oruwariye and Okuda have done a fantastic job so far this season. Very tall tasks in front of them today with Julio and Calvin Ridley, but you would have loved to have seen Desmond Trufant. And then Quintez Cephas. We saw Matthew Stafford go to Quintez a lot in week number 1, so trying to get him back on the field. Those are probably the two biggest names that really stand out to me that could have an impact on today's game.
And yesterday, news broke that Miles Killebrew would not be playing today. That was for a personal issue. We don't have any further details on that, but that is why he is out. It is not a healthy scratch or a injury scratch for him. It was a personal issue that meant he is not playing today. So that's what's going on with Killebrew. With that, let's take it to our BetMGM out-of-town preview. Anthony, there are a lot of good games on the slate for this Sunday.
I'm telling you what, I am excited. You look back at Thursday Night Football, and you're like, okay, the Eagles, the Giants, both those teams are struggling. That was actually a highly entertaining game. And how about Daniel Jones sprinting at 22 miles an hour just to trip and fall at the 20-yard line, jumped off the ground and snagged his foot, the turf monster. But we have great matchups. You have the Battle of Ohio between Cincy and Cleveland, that 1 o'clock window between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Tennessee Titans. That is a monstrous game.
Absolutely.
That was supposed to be played earlier this season, but was postponed due to COVID. We had the game between the Raiders and the Buccaneers that was supposed to be Sunday Night Football this week, but because of the Las Vegas Raiders having some COVID issues, they moved that game up to 4:05 and flexed the Seahawks and the Cardinals into the Sunday Night Football window. But very much looking forward to Tampa Bay and the Buccaneers going against the Raiders, a battle of pirates. You have Dallas against Washington, two teams that are very much in flux right now so far this season. And then, hey, the Chargers and the Jaguars. Very much looking forward to seeing Justin Herbert against those Jags as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be turning on that Sunday Night Football game when I get home from this game day here at Ford Field, the Seahawks and the Cardinals. That should definitely be a good one. And how about the snow in Denver today? I am shook that it is October and they have got a full-on snowstorm there in Denver for that Broncos-Chiefs game. Anthony, I'm glad we're inside.
It's always 70 degrees and sunny here at Ford Field, and you know what? It feels like it's too early for snow on the ground already, but different parts of the country, they have had it, and we'll see how Patrick Mahomes and that offense can move a little bit. And another one, because of that the Las Vegas Raiders, the way that they played against Kansas City, that one at 4:05, I just can't stop thinking about it. And then Monday Night Football, we're going to, obviously NFC North connection here with the Chicago Bears and the LA Rams. The Rams playing some really good football. The Bears just somehow, some way keep winning football games. So that'll be highly entertaining for Monday night as well.
Yeah, I mean, you keep going back to that Raiders-Tampa Bay game. What a day for Tampa Bay sports fans. They got Raiders-Bucks at 4:05, and then you've got Game 5 of the World Series later on this evening, which, by the way...
Are you telling me you have some investment in that game?
Listen,
here?
I've got a little bit of an investment. I am from Florida, so I was pretty amped up to see the end of that Game 4 game last night. What a wild ending. I said it on my Instagram story today. I'm pretty amped up from that. Let's see if the Lions can add to the excitement today.
Yeah, hopefully they'll carry over a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a look around the league with the standings to see where all of the different divisions stand. It is a tough race over in the AFC North with Pittsburgh and Baltimore. That one is certainly anyone's game right now.
Very much so. The AFC North, and you look at Pittsburgh and you look at Baltimore, two franchises that have been just consistently good. 9-7 is a good team in the NFL. The only difference between 9-7 and 11-5 is 2 games, and sometimes 2 games can come down to 2 individual plays. And you talk about if I said, hey, this team finished 10-6 this year, what would be a team or a franchise that you would kind of place with that? It'd be teams like Pittsburgh and with Baltimore. But Pittsburgh playing Tennessee there out of the AFC South today. Those 2 teams undefeated. Somebody's got to lose, or perhaps they could tie. I guess we could throw that out there. But what about the Buffalo Bills? Couple of tough weeks for the Bills. They'll get to rebound today against the New York Jets, who have struggled mightily so far this season. I look for Josh Allen to have a monstrous game against the Jets to get the Bills to circle the wagons again.
So you're writing in a win for the Bills already there in that in the NFC East.
It might be 11:54 this morning, but I'm going with the Bills, yes.
All right, I'll take it. And then in the AFC South, the Tennessee Titans have played so well this season, but the Colts aren't far behind them.
Colts aren't far behind, and to be honest with you, when you look at the way that the Colts kind of struggled in their 2 losses and then who their wins came against, I'm not necessarily sold on Phillip Rivers in Indy just yet. Tennessee is playing some lights-out football. Ryan Tannehill, what about the resurgence? After things didn't work out in Miami, sometimes it's just a change of scenery. Mike Vrabel has that Titans team looking great. They can run the football really well with Derrick Henry. So I'm all in on Tennessee. And then the bottom half of that division, Houston, they've got some issues. Jacksonville, they've got some issues. So I'm not too concerned about the bottom portion of that division.
All right, well, let's flip over to the NFC standings. Man, Anthony, the NFC East, you talked about that Thursday night football game. That division still just perplexes me.
Hey, somebody's got to win it, right? And the divisional winner is going to be the only one that gets an opportunity to go to the playoffs. It is baffling the fact that, Dallas is, I think that Dallas is maybe a little bit overhyped and over-talked about throughout the country. Philadelphia, they have a run to the Super Bowl. New York has won in the Super Bowl of late under the Eli Manning during his tenure there. Washington has struggled in recent memory, but top to bottom in this division the last 2 years has just been very strange. The fact that these teams just can't seem to figure it out over the last 2 years.
I liked what TJ Lang tweeted this week. He said, petition to send the Lions to the NFC East, just because of how that division is just struggling right now. And if the Lions were sitting in that division, hey, they'd be in a lot better spot than they are right now in the NFC North, sitting at number 3. They've got a little bit of a ways to go to catch up to Chicago. How about Chicago at the top of the division?
Nick Foles and company, they decide in the Windy City they're going to make a quarterback change. Nick Foles comes in, and Chicago just finds ways to win football games. And, of course, you're going to have the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Jones finally having a running game with Aaron Rodgers. That's something that he's been looking forward to. And Green Bay is just Green Bay, a model of consistency. That's what it is. And Minnesota, with the trade of Yannick Ngakoue earlier this week, makes you really wonder what's going on up there in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, and then you look at the NFC South, who the Lions' opponent is this week. Atlanta, they're at the bottom of the NFC South at 1-5. They're trying to catch up to the Carolina Panthers, the Saints, and then Tampa Bay. They're up at the top. Who we talked about is facing the Oakland Raiders today. That's an interesting division as well.
It is, and I just can't quite figure out the South. Like, all of me wants to believe that Tom Brady and Tampa Bay, they look like they're going to make another addition with the signing of Antonio Brown earlier this week, so that's going to get interesting. They're just trying to pull all these pieces together to make this thing work while Tom is there, so they're all in. I don't really know about New Orleans yet. I know that with the Lions game against the Saints are missing a lot of players and still were able to get a win. And then Teddy Bridgewater in Carolina at 3-3. I don't know enough about those teams to really make a clear-cut decision in the South. But the West on the other hand, we could see all 4 potentially of those teams make it to the playoffs. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and we've got a matchup between 2 of them tonight when we get home from this game, Seattle and Arizona. I mean, that is a huge game for their division. Yeah,
very much so. All the cards are out there on the table. Russell Wilson's played fantastic football, and it's really been interesting because Seattle has been built on defense in recent memory, but now it's the Russell Wilson show, and you got to let Russ cook. And the way that the offense has been playing, it's really kind of strange to see a team that was so defensively strong. Their offense was always good, but it was really, hey, you looked at the 12s and you thought, okay, the Seahawks, the Legion of Boom, it's a defensive team that has an offense. Now it's an offensive team that has some defense. It's very strange.
Yeah, it definitely is. Good stuff on the standings there, Anthony. We'll see what shakes up here in Week 7.
And, of course, we would always like to thank Henry Ford Health System for being the presenting partner of the Detroit Lions pregame show today. A reminder to all of you watching right now, make sure you tune in to Fox 2 each Sunday at 10 a.m. for Lions Game Day, and then turn it over to Fox 2 tonight at 11 to watch Sportsworks and Lions Game Night for a complete recap and interviews from this afternoon's game. If you're watching from the Detroit Lions broadcast region, make sure you tune in to your local Fox station to catch today's game, which kicks off at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And at each home game this season, we're recognizing select teachers as the champion of the game, fueled by Campbell's Chunky. We're counting on fans to nominate high school teachers who make a significant impact in their communities. Be sure to visit DetroitLions.com/champion to nominate a deserving high school teacher today. And this year's Detroit Lions locker room sale has gone virtual. The sale will be live for Sunday, October 25th through Sunday, November 1st at 8 p.m. Fans can visit DetroitLions.com/locker room sale sale to search through hundreds of items, including footballs and helmets signed by both current and former Lions players. There's jerseys, Lions-branded apparel, and much, much more, with all proceeds from the locker room sale benefiting Detroit Lions charities and used to support organizations throughout the Metro Detroit area working to build stronger, more vibrant, and thriving communities. And of course, fans, we want to see your game face today. You have the chance to be featured on today's show by posting using the hashtag DTE GameFace and showing us your game day energy. Don't miss your opportunity to be a part of the Lions game day. Post now with the hashtag DTE GameFace.
Welcome back into the Detroit Lions pregame show presented by Henry Ford Health System. We are here at Ford Field while the Lions are down in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We'll be taking you there in just a few minutes as the Lions begin to hit the field for pregame warmups. But for now, I want to welcome in Tim Twentyman from DetroitLions.com to preview a little bit about this game. Tim, this is definitely a game the Lions have their eyes on. They feel like they can win.
Well, it's an important game to get back to 3-3, 500. Now you're in the conversation in the NFC playoff picture, and you feel pretty good about where you're at with some winnable games coming up. We've talked about it before, the schedule in November and playing some teams that are under 500. So it's a big game because it's a good opportunity to kind of get yourself back after you didn't start the way you wanted to. Now you can reset at 3-3. You've got some winnable games. You come home against an Indy team the following week. It's an important game in that aspect to kind of get yourself back to that 500 mark, reset, and here we go.
It would absolutely be helpful if this team could get to 500 before this next little game at home when they take on the Colts. We'll see how the Colts are playing by then.
So a little nugget, thanks to NFL media research here, is teams that are 3-3, that start the year 3-3, have a 35% chance of making the playoffs. At least they have since 1990. 2-4, that drops all the way down to a little better than 9%. So it tells you a little bit of just how important this game is to get to that 3-3 mark. Like I said, reset yourself, and now you've got a stretch run of games where hopefully you can make a little run.
That's a great stat. I love that one.
Yeah, NFL media research does a good job with all that stuff.
Seriously.
Yeah.
All right, let's look back at this game this last week and who performed so well. I know the Lions are hoping for another good performance from him today. DeAndre Swift. We got to see what he can do in the run game, and man, was it impressive.
Well, yeah, and it started with that first carry of 54 yards. And we talked to DeAndre this week, and I think he wishes he kind of would have put on the Jets and maybe not tried to cut back, and maybe that's a touchdown run. He was kicking himself a little bit this week. But, yeah, you saw it. And we've seen it in the passing game all year. His 16 catches are second most behind T.J. Hockenson this year. And so he's been a big part of that passing game. But you loved what you see from the carries, and you're seeing it on your screen right now. The 14 carries, 116 yards, 8.3 average. That's explosive.
Nice.
That's every time you're touching the ball, you're making an impact. And I know the 54-yard run, skews that a little bit, but still, for the 13 carries to get up to 116 yards after that, he was toting the rock pretty good. And then the 2 touchdowns, he's got 4 total on the year. So he's just becoming more and more of a key part of this offense as the season moves on.
How about the face-off between 2 Georgia running backs, former Georgia running backs today on
Now,
the
I
field?
think it didn't Swift break Gurley's record for the all-time average per carry. I think Swift finished at 6.6, and I think that just notched Gurley.
Right.
So, and look, they're really close friends, as Swift said this week when we talked to him. He considers Gurley an older brother. And so, yeah, it'll be fun for him, going home to Georgia, he said he's going to have a lot of family there in Georgia, and it's where he spent a lot of time, obviously, in college, and facing a big brother type back on the other side. It should be a fun experience for him today.
And this is a game that will have fans today down in Atlanta. We saw it last week in Jacksonville. Fans again today at Mercedes-Benz. So fun for those guys to have some family, friends in town. Certainly will be entertaining to watch. I know Matthew Stafford has a lot of family and friends down in the Georgia area. So we'll see, how he is able to play today as he takes on the Atlanta Falcons. Tim, what do you think we should expect to see from Stafford?
Well, I think it'll be fun for Matthew. First off, is amazingly, he's never played down in Georgia.
That is wild.
He's played Atlanta, I think it was 4 times before this, but one of them was obviously the London game where they came back and won.
Oh, yes, we remember that
And then
one.
they played a couple times here in Detroit, but he's never gone down and played in the state of Georgia, where he obviously had a terrific college career. But you expect a big game from Matthew. I mean, this is an Atlanta defense. They're good against the run. They're top 5 against the run, but against the pass, they're second worst in the NFL this season. They're allowing the second most explosive plays from a defense. They're allowing the most yards per play for a defense. So you expect Matthew, you're seeing the numbers there, 60% completion percentage, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a little high for me still. I think he's got to clean that up, did a good job, with that last week. And so, I think he's going to have a big game. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. That's obviously a really, really good offense over there with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, and they're going to be able to score some points, and I think Matthew's going to be able to score some too. And so should be high-flying. If you got the over, I'm not a betting man, but if you got the over, you might want to do the over in this one.
All right, a little bit of a shootout maybe down in Atlanta today. We'll see what happens. I know Matthew's family, his wife and kids are down there in Atlanta to watch him play in this game. Certainly will be fun for them considering we haven't been able to have fans here at Ford Field yet this season. So good to see Matthew getting to play down in Georgia once again. Tim, I'm curious about this with what we saw from DeAndre Swift last week. Why do you think that was the game that we saw him kind of explode as far as in the run game goes? We saw what he could do out of the backfield, but last week was really the first time we really saw him carry the ball in bulk.
Yeah, a couple things. We talked about him missing a lot of time in training camp. And so, I think as a young player, when you miss so much time in training camp, and then you don't have a preseason, right? He didn't have the offseason either. So he missed hundreds of those reps. And I think it was just a situation where they didn't want to put too much on that young man's plate. And he was still adjusting to the pro game, right? There's one thing about practicing, and then there's one thing about going out and everything's, flying around and it's a game situation. And I think as a young player, you have to adjust to that. We've seen that with Jeff Okudah as well. We've seen him improve every single week as the game slows down a little bit, as you become more comfortable. And I think that was part of it. And then too, they were afforded the bye, before that Jacksonville game. And I think, we talked to the coaches, and I think they simplified some things in the run game, both offensively and defensively. And you saw what that translated to. Defensively, they only allowed 44 rushing yards to Jacksonville. And then offensively, I think it allowed Swift, he had 4 games under his belt. He was given the bye week to kind of take a look, self-evaluate. And then I think they then simplify some things. And I think it just all kind of came together and slowed down. Darrell Bevell said it was a situation where, you get a call and it's not racing through his head about, okay, I've got to be right here and this and this. It became easier for him, and now that allows you to play faster, and then you see the results on the field that we did in Jacksonville. So I think it's a combination of all that stuff, and I think he's going to be a big part of what they do moving forward. I think Adrian Peterson's going to have some early carries. I think they're going to mix Swift in on those early carries, and then between those two, they're going to kind of go with the hot hand moving forward, and then I think Kerryon Johnson settled into that third down role, pass protection, receiver out of the backfield. That's a good role for him, but I think both Swift and Peterson are going to get carries early, and then the hot hand will decide if we see 15, 16, 17 carries out of either Swift or Adrian Peterson.
Well, it certainly helped to have the offensive line play the way that they did last week, with 8 offensive linemen playing in there. Pretty impressive what they were able to put together. I mean, that offensive line, I mean, this is what's projected to be the starters today. You've got Taylor Decker at left tackle. Jonah Jackson was playing in there at left guard. Frank Ragnow, though, at center. I mean, he has been solid for this team.
Yeah, if you're an analytics type person, which I am, I love those stats and that the kind of the numbers behind the game. And you look at Frank Ragnow, I mean, he is playing some of the best football he's ever played. He's number 2 ranked guard, or at least graded by Pro Football Focus. And you look at the numbers here, I mean, 341 defensive snaps, 0 sacks allowed, 4 pressures, Tori, in only 5 games. I mean, he is playing, in my opinion, at a Pro Bowl caliber level. And, you know, he's there in just his 3rd season. And so you're talking about a guy, and there he is right there coming out leading the boys. And you mentioned it in the top. They played 8 offensive linemen last week, and there was 0 drop-off. And I credit Frank Ragnow a lot for that.
Absolutely.
Clear communication, getting all those guys on the same page, making the signals. I thought he was really, really terrific. And then you talk about Taylor Decker. I think he's having probably his finest season at left tackle. Jonah Jackson, I think that was a really good find by Bob Quinn in the draft. He's a really good young player who's kind of stepped into his own too. And so I think when you put all those pieces together, and I wrote this on DetroitLions.com this week, I think this is the best offensive line Matthew Stafford's had in his tenure here in Detroit.
Wow.
They're young, they're talented, they're deep, that they showed last week. And, you know, I think they're the catalyst to everything they're doing offensively in the run game and the pass game early on.
And not to mention, we weren't sure if Frank Ragnow was even going to be able to go last week. You know, he missed a little bit of practice leading into that game. We weren't sure if he was going to be able to go.
And we have to add tough to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he was able to play last week and certainly played a big part in helping that run game get going.
Yeah, 180 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, they were just explosive all there. They're huge holes. Now, I think me and you could have maybe ran through that first hole that Swift had. You know, we wouldn't have got 54 yards, but we could have got through to the second level. I mean, that's just...
I don't know, Tim. I'm pretty fast.
That's how good those guys are opening holes right now in the run game, and it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch when, you know, I think they've searched for a number of years to find that right combination. They've obviously spent a lot of resources in that line with first-round pick Taylor Decker and a first-round pick in Frank Ragnow, and to see it finally start to come together and to build the kind of talent and depth that they have, I think that's really good, not only for the rest of the season, but moving forward, too, in seasons to come.
Couple other weapons that Matthew Stafford has out on the field today. I mean, guys like Kenny Galladay,
he's okay.
TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, pretty good.
I think we'll be seeing them get the ball a little bit today, too.
Yeah, he's going to spread it around, and that's been the MO for Matthew Stafford, and that's his favorite guy down the field right there. You know, you look at last week, 4 catches, 105 yards, 26.3 average. That's not too bad, Kenny. You know, that's making some plays down the field, and that's his MO. That's where he's really, really good. Kenny's not going to get you a ton of separation, right? I mean, you know, he's got size and strength. He's a 4.5 guy. He's a long strider. He's faster than people think. But where he really succeeds and excels is going up those 50-50 balls, making plays over corners down the field. He's just so big and physical, and he catches the ball away from his body. He never lets it get into him. So you can see it right there. Hands out in front, right? Catch the ball, boom, tuck it. And so he's just so strong. That's the word I use for Kenny. He's just really strong. He knows how to use his body well. And so I would hope that they find a way to get him down the field today. Hopefully they start off running the ball well with Swift, Adrian, and company, and then boom, you can use that play action, right? And you can find those one-on-one situations with Kenny down the field. And look, whenever Matthew sees Kenny Galladay down the field one-on-one, I think they've built that trust now that the ball is going to go up in the air and he expects Kenny to make a play, and Kenny's shown over the years that he can do that.
I feel like we haven't talked enough this week about what Kenny Galladay did last week, because all the conversation has been on DeAndre Swift for good reason, because he's a rookie and this was really his coming out game in the run game. So we really got to see a lot of good things from DeAndre Swift and talked about him for good reason. But that over 100-yard game from Kenny Galladay was pretty impressive as well. And that connection between 9 and 19 is always fun to watch when it's on fire.
Yeah, and it's fun when you can have that in the passing game, and then you have something in the run game
When
where
you got
Swift
both.
where you got both. I think it was the first time since, 2013 with Calvin and Reggie Bush?
It was.
And so it's been a while since you've had, that dynamic ability to make plays on the ground and through the air. And that's when this offense is at its best. Bevel talks all the time about wanting to be balanced, right? And be able to attack teams in multiple ways. Last week was the best example they've had since Darrell Bevel was here about being balanced and attacking teams in multiple ways. 180 yards on the ground, and Galladay having the big day, and then making plays down the field in the passing game. That's what this offense, when it's clicking, when it's right, when Darrell Bevel, says this is how I want my offense to be. Last week was the perfect example. Just throw that tape on, and that's what Bevel wants to be on offense.
Oh, and by the way, they've got a tight end that they can use
We
quite
talked
a bit
about
as
him
well.
at all?
Tim and I, we talked before these pregame shows about the players that we want to cover, and somehow T.J. Hawkinson keeps making his way into that list.
I'm telling you, I'm on the TJ train here. You look at the 17 catches, leads the team, right? 197 yards, real solid. That 11.6 average, that's good, right? You're making big plays, middle of the field, stretching 3 touchdowns, right? And red zone touchdowns, right? He and Matthew Stafford have really kind of built that connection over the last few weeks. And I think dating back to last year before TJ was hurt is in that red zone. He's big, he's strong, he's fast. And if you try to guard him with a linebacker, he's just too fast. If you try to guard him with a safety, he's just too big, and he knows how to use his body. And so I think he's become a real weapon in the red zone. And so whenever the lines are down there, I think I always tend to look at 88, and I think he's going to be a favorite target of Matthew Stafford.
You do. I can attest to that as well.
What did I say in the preview show for training camp?
You did. We had a training camp live show where we previewed which guy we thought would have the most touchdowns this season. And Tim, go ahead, tell us who you thought it would be.
T.J. Hawkinson with 9. And so hey, he's on pace here. He's going pretty good. 3. So I need a few more, get to 9, and then I'm going to be good.
Yeah, you're feeling good about that prediction.
I'm on the TJ train, baby.
All right, we'll see how that plays out. We've still got to talk defense, though, and we will get to that in just a minute, right after this quick break.
All for leaving opponents in our dust, linebackers and cancer alike. All for believing in ourselves, even when victory seems impossible. All for working tirelessly as one for the good of all around us. As the official healthcare provider of the Detroit Lions, Henry Ford Health System is proud to keep our greatest athletes and their biggest fans at their best. Henry Ford Health System, all for you.
Priorities shift from rush hours to slow breakfasts, from busy schedules to scheduled downtime. And as life happens, shifts and surprises are sure to follow. At Priority Health, we'll always be ready to shift with you, from complicated policies to ones written by humans, from a plan for 1 to a plan for 3. Because your priorities have shifted, maybe it's time your health insurance did too.
Welcome back into the Detroit Lions pregame show presented by Henry Ford Health System. I'm Tori Petry here at Ford Field as we preview Lions Falcons, which will kick off today at 1 p.m. I've got Tim Twentyman here with me on set. We've talked a little bit about the offense. Let's get to the defense now. Who are going to be the key players against this explosive Atlanta offense?
Explosive is right. Yeah, and they're going to have Julio Jones. And when you have Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, this is a Falcons passing team that averages over 400 yards per game. They're the number 2 passing offense in the league, Tori. And so, I think that's probably the best duo in football. You can at least argue it. And then you've got a guy, a former MVP, slinging the rock like Matt Ryan, too. It's an explosive bunch there. And Amani Oruwariye and Jeff Okudah are going to have their hands full with those 2 guys today. No Desmond Trufant. I bet he's a little disappointed about that. He spent his first 7 seasons in Atlanta. Probably wanted to get back there and play against his old teammates, but the hamstring's going to keep him out at least another week. So it's going to be up to the 2 young guys. And look, we talk about Jeff Okudah a lot, and we talk about him getting better. And look, he's the number 3 overall pick, and so you're going to talk about him. But a guy that I don't think we've talked about enough is Amani Oruwariye.
Agreed.
And the way that he has played early on this season. You're looking at it right here. I mean, teams are completing less than 50% of their passes when they throw Amani's way. Look at that opponent passer rating, 66.4. And the number that's not on that screen is the 0. in terms of the 0 touchdowns allowed in his coverage this year. And so, look, he's played terrific. I mean, he's big, he's physical, he's got speed. You saw it last week, he knocked a couple of those balls away deep in Lions territory. And I just don't think we're talking enough about how good this young man is playing in his second year. He's been really, really good. I think he's been, honestly, the star of that secondary through the first 5 games.
I sat down with Amani for Lions game plan this week, virtually, of course, and chatted with him. And I asked him about that. I said, Amani, there are a lot of people that feel like we're not talking about you enough. And he said, listen, I'm happy to have it that way. I'd rather fly under the radar. And he's just getting out there and putting his head down and going to work. But I absolutely agree with you, Tim. Amani Oruwariye is the Lions cornerback 1 right now, and he's playing like it.
He is playing like it. And then now it shifts over to the other side because he's going to have a tough task. Because if I'm Atlanta, what I'm going to do with an all-pro player like Julio Jones is, okay, where's the rookie at? And that's just what coaches do. I don't care how talented of a rookie you are, you're still a rookie, and you're only 5 games, and in his case, 4 games into his career. So that's going to be an important matchup on the other side too, with Oruwariye and Ridley, or if it's Oruwariye and Julio Jones. Is those 2 guys against those 2 receivers? To me, that's the key to the game. Now, you obviously want to get some pressure up front, and you want to stop Todd Gurley in the run game too. But look, Atlanta's one of those teams, in my opinion, that throws to run. They're not a team that comes out there and tries to run. They know where their bread is buttered, and it's on those 2 guys on the outside.
Yeah.
And so they're going to sling it around. They're going to sling it early, and I think they're going to test those young cornerbacks, and we're going to see if they're up to the challenge, because to me, this is going to be collectively those 2 guys' toughest challenge so far this year.
Yeah, and Jeff Okudah had a play early on in the game last week against Jacksonville that I'm sure he would have wanted back, but really after that play that he gave up, he played pretty solid after that. We've seen him improve as this season has gone on.
Yeah, it's a lot like we talked about with DeAndre Swift. Once you get 4 or 5 games into this, right, the scheme becomes, a little bit clearer, a little bit easier, right, and the game slows down a little bit. And that's what we're starting to see. And I think it was good for Jeff Okudah to play DeAndre Hopkins and Devontae Adams early on. I think, that's going to give him a little bit of a idea of what he's going to face today in Ridley and Julio. Now, Julio's a little bit different beast. He's big, strong, physical. But Jeff has also played against Kenny Golladay in practice. So, he's got a lot of experience playing against a guy like Julio. So, he's gotten better every week. There's what you want to see. But again, it's going to be, probably his biggest test so far this year, and we'll see how he comes out of it.
And he's had some tough tests already this season.
Yes,
so.
but that's the NFL. I mean, that's the receiver position in the NFL. I mean, there's few weeks, maybe last week was one where you don't have a top 10 type guy you're going against. And so, look, Jeff's going to see that every week. But this week, if he gets matched up against Julio, now we're talking about a Hall of Fame type guy. And that's a little different. And so I'm looking forward to the matchup because I think Jeff's a bigger physical guy. We've seen it in the way he supports the run and makes some plays behind the line of scrimmage for tackles for losses. He doesn't mind putting his head down and going and hit somebody.
No.
And I don't think he's going to back down from Julio Jones either, I think that maybe fits his style a little bit better, playing against a bigger physical type guy. And so we'll just have to see how it plays out. It's going to be a true test for both him and Amani this week. It should be fun to watch.
Absolutely. A couple guys that we have talked about in pretty much every pregame show as well is those guys in the secondary with Duron Harmon and how he has played. And then at linebacker with Jamie Collins, he has really been an important part. 2 guys who joined this team this offseason and have been key points in this defense as this season has gone on.
Yeah, and I think the important thing with both those guys is not only did they have experience playing with Matt Patricia, but in that scheme, in a similar scheme too. And I think when you talk about guys coming over that have played in this scheme, the important thing is that they know what it takes for this scheme to be successful. They know what it looks like. Right, they've seen it when everything's clicking and they're playing really well. They know what this scheme can do at its best, and it's very multiple. You look at Duron Harmon, the 20 tackles, but the 2 interceptions, 4 passes defense. He had a great pick last week. I think that's where he's really, helped the secondary is his ability to play one half of the field along with Tracy Walker and his ability to get from the middle of the field to the sideline, and his ability to cover. I think they're a much better cover safety group with Duron Harmon in the mix there, because Tracy's really good there too, but I think Tracy's better coming up in the box, a tackler, and now that allows you to move him up, support the run, and you've got a guy you really trust, a veteran guy in Duron Harmon that can play, that deep part, that be that single high safety and be able to get from sideline to sideline, and I think it allows you to do a little bit more things scheme-wise in the passing game.
One name on this list that we haven't talked too much about this season is a rookie in John Pennicini, who has really been starting to come on these last couple of weeks and had a good game against Jacksonville.
Yeah, he had a really good game. You look at the 7 tackles and the tackle for loss, and look, his snaps are down, but what that tells me is he's maximizing those times that he does get in.
Absolutely.
And what we saw with last week was they moved John Pennicini to the nose tackle, and that allowed them to move Danny Shelton around a little bit, and it allowed them to move. I think my
Nick
alarm
Williams.
here is going off. I got something going on my phone here. Sorry about that. And Nick Williams, and they allowed them to move into different gaps, and so. It was, they were able to really change some of the gap looks in the run game, get those 3 guys, and we saw what it did with 44 rushing yards for the Jacksonville Jaguars last week. And so his ability to step in, he's got terrific technique. He plays low, but that ability to then move other guys around, give teams different looks. And so I think it's just another thing scheme-wise that they can do, and good for that rookie to step up and where coaches can have that confidence in putting him in there, and then you can change some scheme stuff up. It just gives Corey Unlin and Matt Patricia other options up front in terms of defensive line personnel.
Absolutely. Tim, thank you so much for all your insight there on the Lions. We'll be back in just a minute to talk a little bit more about things on the Falcons side of the ball after this quick break. Stay with us.
I vote personally because I believe that the beautiful thing about the United States of America is our freedoms and our rights, and one of those rights is the freedom to vote, and they exercise your right to vote. So it's the beautiful thing of a democracy, and I feel like it's my right as a citizen.
I vote because your voice really matters and every vote counts. And if you want to be heard, you got to use that ability that you have.
The reason why I vote is because I think it's one of our great rights as an American to take part in our government and our country and have a say in what actually goes on around us.
This will be my first time voting, so I want to make sure that I do my part.
In the past, I hadn't necessarily, educated myself or taken the time to learn about, issues or people on the ballot to vote for. But obviously, there's been a lot of growth and learning about that as a team and as an individual for me, and I've been able to see the importance of it. I've been able to see the importance of using your voice as part of our, democracy, as a state and as a country for positive change, because we all do want to see positive change. And I think we need it now more than ever.
Myself, as an African American, we haven't always had that right, and I want to make sure that I utilize all the tools that I have now to make sure that my voice is heard. Because that's what my ancestors and the people who were before them, my family who were before them, that's what they fought for.
There's many ways that you can vote. You can vote online, you can go in person.
I want to make sure that I take my time, do my research, and make an educated decision on what I want for my future for the next 4 years.
What are things that I'm concerned about? What are things that my teammates are concerned about, or my friends and family? Just know your vote counts. You may feel like a small person in this world, but the beautiful thing about a democracy in this country is every single vote counts, and you can make an impact in your state and your country. Visit michigan.gov/vote to check your voter status, register to vote, or see a sample ballot to do your research.
I will vote.
I will vote.
I will vote. I will use my voice.
I will use my voice.
I will use my voice.
Will you?
Will you?
Welcome back to the Detroit Lions pregame show presented by Henry Ford Health System. I'm Tori Petry here at Ford Field as we preview the Lions matchup against the Atlanta Falcons down in Atlanta today. I'm joined here on set by Mike O'Hara from DetroitLions.com to chat a little bit about the Falcons side of things. Mike, how you doing on this Sunday morning?
I'm doing great, and I'm glad you're doing well with that scooter, by the way.
Thank you. I am doing well. Scooted up to the set, and we are all set to go and chat a little bit more about what's happening on the Falcons side of things, Mike. It all starts with this Falcons offense.
Well, it certainly does, and it starts, as Tim had said, with Julio Jones, the wide receiver. Look, he missed one game 2 weeks ago, but came back, and he was Julio Jones last week against the Minnesota Vikings. He had 8 catches for 130-plus yards and 2 touchdowns, and that's not just a big game for out of nowhere for Julio Jones. That's the way he plays now.
Yeah.
He's not always going to get 2 touchdowns. That would be 32 for the season, but this guy's as good as they come in the National Football League. He's 6'3", he's 220, he's fast, he's smooth, he's silky, he's got hands, he can catch and run. I mean, the real deal.
Any other compliments for Julio there?
I'm just getting started here. No, but he's the kind of guy you love watching play because he
Absolutely.
plays the right way. He really does. But he's also got a partner there, Calvin Ridley himself, a first round draft pick out of Alabama. He's in his third year, and I've just got some notes here if you don't mind me looking at my notebook. But look, this is a kid who's been consistent. 64 catches as a rookie, 63 last year, and now he stepped it up this year, which you'd want him to do. You want to see that progression of a player. 35 catches already, 550 and 5 touchdowns. So it's a twin threat out there, a legitimate twin threat, big receivers who can produce.
Absolutely. And let's take a look at the stats of those two guys back to back, Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones, right next to each other. You see the number of receptions that these guys have. Calvin Ridley with a little bit more than Julio right now. I know Calvin Ridley's been a talk of our fantasy segment that we do on this show, but you look at the yards per catch, almost even between those two guys at 15. That is pretty good.
Well, you want them to be seeing me and Julio down by the end zone at the end of this game, okay? But it's a tough cover for Amani Oruwariye and for Jeff Okudah. But look, it's the National Football League. Wide receivers, every team has them now. It's like the start of the Indianapolis 500. 33 cars, they're all fast. Same way here. It's a tough cover every week.
I like that comparison. And not to mention the guy that's throwing these two guys the ball, Matt Ryan, former MVP. I mean, he still got it.
Yeah, I know he's got 11 touchdown passes this year in 5 games. 6 games for him. Not quite the player he was when he was the league MVP and took that team to the Super Bowl and a 28-3 lead over Matt Patricia and the New England Patriots. We know how that turned out. But still,
couldn't talk about the Falcons without mentioning that.
Okay, but really a good football player, Matt. Even today and last week, really broke out. 30 for 40 for 371 yards and 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. Look, don't take this guy lightly. In his mid-30s, he's still a very, very good football player.
Yeah, absolutely not. And then they've also got a weapon in their backfield in Todd Gurley. That's a guy that you've got to stop as well.
Well, there's something about a running back to me. I really think the offense can start with a running back if he's as good as Todd Gurley. But he's not quite the same guy he was when he came in with the Rams. He's had some knee injuries. He's still, producing 422 yards, 4.3 per carry. But that's not him at his best, really. And you just talk to guys. He's doesn't quite hit it up inside like he used to. He'll look to bounce outside and go the distance. I think you can defend him, especially if the Lions play the way they did last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars when they held them to 44 yards. Now, look, this guy's going to get more than 44 on his own, but I think this is a guy that the Lions can handle today.
Yeah, he still does have 5 touchdowns on the season, so you do still need to look out for him, and that's going to be the job largely of these linebackers that you're seeing getting warmed up down on the field in Atlanta. We'll see what kind of job they are able to do today. I do want to touch on the Falcons' defense. That hasn't been the strength of their team, but they still do have a few guys there who you really got to look out for. Mike, who would you say that is?
The one I look at is Grady Jarrett in his 6th year. Look, you look at his graph, and that's good. It's consistent. He's good every year. Made the Pro Bowl. His first Pro Bowl last year was 7.5 sacks and more than 20 quarterback hits. I mean, look, sacks are one thing, hits are another. Look, you want as many sacks as you can get, but from a defensive tackle, who's not the biggest guy, only 6 feet even, 305, 6, 7, 8 pounds, something like that, but just absolutely a relentless defender, just the kind of guy you want in the middle of your defense. Like I said, made his first Pro Bowl last year, and I think he's on his way to another one. He's got 2.5 sacks and already got 8 quarterback hits. So, guys, protect number 9 today, okay?
Yeah, that's going to be the job of this offensive line that you see out there on the field getting ready for this game. Mike, they did a phenomenal job last weekend in Jacksonville, rotating 8 guys in there. What do you think this Lions offensive line is able to do today against that Falcons defense?
Well, pretty much the same thing, really. And one thing, Tori, that I looked at was, look, they played 8 guys, and 3 of them were backups going into the game, and they didn't just come in and play 1 or 2 or 3 snaps for a series and get out of there. I think they averaged something like 41 snaps each. So, credit to the coaching staff, Hank Fraley and his assistant and all that for getting guys ready, preparing them during the season, during the practice week, and then getting them in the game and functioning in the game. There's a big difference between practice and the game, but you've got to prepare, and then you've got to produce on the field. And so I think all around for those guys, that was really a remarkable effort.
Oh, this Falcons defense has given up a few things so far this season. They're averaging over 30 points a game, giving up 432 yards a game that they're giving up, and 97 rushing yards a game. So, Mike, I know that those are some statistics the Lions would love to have in this game. You think the Lions offense is able to put up some of those kinds of numbers?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, look, they're 31st in the league against the pass for a reason, but I think the Lions want to be stubborn in the run game, and I don't think they want to stick to it. And if they can crack that run defense, it'll make it a much easier game. But I really think they can have a big game anyway. I made a note to myself, big enough so I could read it. That's number 9, Matthew Stafford. I just showed it to Tori there. No, Matthew really hasn't had the big game yet, and he really hasn't had. We haven't seen him at his best consistently. He's had one game of over 250 yards passing. That, to me, is not Matthew Stafford. But I think if run game or without the run game, I think he can have a big game with his arm today. I really do.
Show the camera that note there. Number 9.
Number
you see
9.
it. You see it. He wanted you guys to know that he was going to talk about number 9 today, and for good reason. So we think that Stafford is going to have a pretty big game back in Georgia today.
No, I really do. Look, he and Matt Ryan are friends. We've read all those stories. We've heard about it for a long time. But look, there's an old saying. There's no better feeling in the world than watching your best friend fail. No, I don't mean catastrophically or anything like that, but getting the better of him. And I think these guys, look, have a friendly competition and then shake hands when it's over and call each other probably on the cell phone on the way home or something like that. But for those 60 minutes, man, it's going to be land warfare, air warfare between two guys who really can throw the ball.
Absolutely. Matthew Stafford did talk about that this week and how excited he was to go back to Georgia, but also how competitive he and Matt Ryan are out there on the football field. We'll see which one gets the upper hand, and we'll be back just after this to talk about the keys for the Lions to win this game. Stay with us.
All for leaving opponents in our dust, linebackers and cancer alike. All for believing in ourselves, even when victory seems impossible. All for working tirelessly as one for the good of all around us. As the official healthcare provider of the Detroit Lions, Henry Ford Health System is proud to keep our greatest athletes and their biggest fans at their best. Henry Ford Health System, all for you.
Show off your Lions pride with the official Detroit Lions debit card offered only by UMCU. Choose how you will represent your team with 3 signature Lions designs. UMCU enhances your banking experience with access to a convenient mobile app, nationwide network of ATMs, and 24/7 online banking. Plus, cardholders get special member-only offers from the Lions. Join UMCU today and be the first in line to receive your exclusive Detroit Lions debit card. Visit umcu.org. Welcome back into the Detroit Lions pregame show presented by Henry Ford Health System. I'm Tori Petry here at Ford Field, joined on set by Mike O'Hara. We've got one last thing to talk about with you today, Mike, and that is the keys to the game of what the Lions need to do in order to win in Atlanta. Where would you say it starts for the Lions today?
Well, I'd make it simple here, Tori. Take advantage. Take advantage of the opportunity you have in front of you to get to 500. Now, 3-3 is not the greatest. It's not exactly where you might want it to be, but it's where you are right now. And there's a big difference, Tori, between 2-4 and 3-3.
Yeah.
Really, then you're setting yourself up for a playoff run. A lot easier when you're at 500 than it is when you're 2 games under. That's number one. Number two, I always think when I say take advantage of what the Falcons defense gives you. If it's run the ball, run the ball. If it's passed, then throw the ball. Like I've said before, I think there's an opportunity here for the Detroit Lions to dominate the passing game today in terms of when they have the ball. I think they can really be effective with it. I think the receiving game is really the strength of their team, even though they've developed a pretty good running game lately with Adrian Peterson, short yardage, first and second down, and then DeAndre Swift. I really think that this kid here is finally the running back that they've been trying to draft for the last 10 or 12 years. They finally got him. So a combination of things. And the other thing is, Raheem Morris, who took over as the head coach last week, he challenged that team, and he really gave them an upbeat message. And that's sort of the coach he's been throughout his career, including 3 years with Tampa Bay. Don't let him get into a feel-good situation today. Get out in front, step on him, and keep the pedal to the metal and win going away.
Yeah, that is their interim head coach who took over after they fired Dan Quinn 5 games into this season. Do you think they've really turned things around since Raheem Morris took over, or was that more of a result of facing a struggling Vikings team last week?
Combination of the two, Trey. What did they do? They took advantage. It's the Detroit Lions' turn to take advantage today. Now, we'll see if he's an interim coach or not. I'm not so sure about that. It might be for the long haul.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Mike, thank you so much for joining us to talk a little bit about this game between the Lions and the Falcons. We appreciate you joining us as always. We'll be back with just a little bit more after this break as we get to our fantasy focus segment of the show. Don't go away.
To honor all the brave men and women stationed around the world who protect our freedom here at home, the Detroit Lions and Kroger invite you to submit nominations for your hometown heroes. Submit your nominations today at DetroitLions.com/hometown heroes for a chance to be honored this season.
We would like to thank Henry Ford Health System for being the presenting partner of the Detroit Lions pregame show today. Make sure you tune in to the home of the Detroit Lions after the game, WJR AM 760. You'll get all the latest info on today's game, plus hear from Coach Patricia and many of your favorite players. That's the Lions postgame show on WJR AM 760, the radio home of the Detroit Lions. And this season, there are even more ways to get into the game thanks to Lions Bingo presented by BetMGM. Lions fans can play along for free all season long for the chance to win great prizes, including the grand prize each week of a weekend stay at an MGM Resorts location. Just download the Lions mobile app and register to play Lions Bingo each and every week. Play along during the game, and once you hit bingo, you score, courtesy of our friends over at BetMGM. Learn more and lock in your Lions Bingo board before kickoff by visiting the official Lions mobile app now. And all morning, fans have been submitting photos to us showing their game day energy using the hashtag DTE GameFace, and you can see the fans from all over are prepared for today's game. Thanks again to all of our fans who are a part of today's DTE Game Face.
Love seeing fans get involved with DTE Game Face. Anthony, I want to get you involved in our fantasy picks this week. Let's take a look at who you and I have selected in fantasy football this week. We'll start with the quarterback position. Anthony, who are you taking?
You know, I usually try to go off the beaten path a little bit, but I'm going with Aaron Rodgers. He's taking on the Houston Texans. They are struggling mightily. They're 26 against opponent quarterbacks, and A-Rod is averaging over 23 points per game in standard scoring. Look at the touchdowns, 13 of them on the season, 1,300 yards. You got to go with the stash today.
Yeah, I'm going with a matchup-based pick this week, and that's Justin Herbert for the LA Chargers. But they're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. We saw what the Lions were able to do to that Jaguars defense last week. I think Justin Herbert is able to do it this week. I mean, this guy has been named Rookie of the Week 3 times this season, so he has been playing really well since he took over that starting quarterback position over in LA. So he's my pick at quarterback today. How about receiver, Anthony? Who are you taking?
Are we going receiver or running back? Which one do you want to do first? Totally up to you. We going receiver?
We'll go receiver.
Receiver it is. Okay,
tell me
receiver
who's going to be catching the most passes.
I'm going to go with Chase Claypool out of Pittsburgh. I like Pittsburgh's matchup today. Okay. Claypool, you know, he had the big game where he had, multiple scores in one game. They're taking on Tennessee. This is a monstrous game with Juju Smith-Schuster on one side, Deontay Johnson lurking. This could be a nice day for Chase Claypool. Plus, I like the fact that he refers to Ben Roethlisberger and himself as 7-Eleven because they're always open. I'm going with Claypool.
You know what? I got to say, I'm loving his Mapletron nickname. I just feel like
good, yeah.
You know, you can't compare anyone to Calvin Johnson, but I do get a kick out of them giving him Mapletron since he is from Canada. Good Canadian boy right there. My pick for this week is going to be Stephon Diggs in Buffalo. Anthony, you and I talked about that game before the show. I really think I'm with you here that Buffalo's going to have a pretty big day against the New York Jets.
Yeah, I love that pick, too. He's going to have a monstrous game today against the Jets. That's a good one.
Okay, running back now. Tell us who you're taking at the running back position.
Alvin Kamara. I'm going with the New Orleans Saints. Carolina's 31st against opposing running backs. Kamara's averaging, close to 30 points per game in standard scoring leagues. He can catch it. He can run it. He can do everything. He gets the better of the Carolina Panthers today.
Anthony, usually you're the king of picking someone out of an Ohio team, but I'm picking it today. I'm going Kareem Hunt from Cleveland against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals have struggled so far this season. I think Kareem Hunt is going to have a pretty good day in the run game, but we've talked about who we're going to pick across the league. Let's go to our Detroit Lions picks today. There's really only a handful of guys that you can select as far as playmakers on this Lions offense. Who's it going to be today, Anthony?
I'm going with Kenny G. Kenny Galladay. Atlanta's really struggled against wide receivers from a fantasy perspective. Kenny's averaging over 17 points per game. He's got to be big today. It doesn't matter if he catches 3 balls or if he catches 30 today. He's got to get the yardage, got to find a way to get into the end zone. This is going to be a shootout today. I look for Kenny Galladay to have a monster afternoon.
Yeah, I'm going to copy your pick from last week. I'm going to go DeAndre Swift myself this week. We saw DeAndre play really well in a stadium that he knows well in Jacksonville, where Florida and Georgia play each other every single year. I think he's going to play well in a state that he knows pretty well this weekend as he makes his return to Georgia. So that is my selection for the Lions fantasy picks. Anthony, thank you so much. I always love doing the fantasy segment with you and chatting a little bit about who we think is going to have a big day today. We appreciate you as always on the show.
Thank you, Tori.
All right, let's turn to our projected starting lineups presented by Ford. We're going defense today, so let's take a look at this defensive line. At defensive end, Trey Flowers. Defensive tackle, Danny Shelton. Defensive tackle, Nick Williams. And defensive lineman, Deshaun Hand. Over at the linebacker position, we got Christian Jones, Jared Davis, and Jamie Collins Sr. And finally, over there in the secondary with the defensive backs, Tracy Walker at safety, Jeff Okuda at corner, Amani Oruwariye at cornerback, and Duron Harmon. All right, guys, that is it for our pregame show presented by Henry Ford Health System. We appreciate you joining us as we do each and every week. That wraps things up for us here at Ford Field, but make sure you tune into your local Fox station if you are in the Lions broadcast area. Tune into that game at 1 p.m. between the Lions and the Falcons, and then come right back here after the game because we've got our postgame show presented by Priority Health coming your way. Thanks, guys, so much for joining us, and we'll see you after the game.